GPT-5 is going to kill OpenAI. That's the line floating around right now. A lot of people are panicking, some are celebrating, and a few are just confused. But here's the thing, that line is not just wrong, it misses a bigger story. In this video, I'm going to break down why the doom and gloom takes don't hold up, why some of the evidence, like those infamous graphs, don't mean what people think, and why this launch is just a bump in the road of the fastest growing tech stories. The wrong graphs in the announcements. Let's start with some of the obvious. Those graphs in the GPT-5 announcement video, they weren't great. I'll picture one right here so you can look at it. Some of them were just flat out wrong, mislabeled accesses, incorrect scaling, or charts that oversimplified technical improvements in ways that made experts do a double take. For a company leading the world in AI, putting out graphs that don't hold up under scrutiny is not a great look. It gave fuel to the critics who already want to tear OpenAI down. But here's the thing, bad slides don't mean bad science. Presentations get rushed. Marketing teams oversimplify. Sometimes mistakes slip through. Think about it. If we judged every company by their worst keynote graph, Apple, Google, Microsoft, they'd have all been killed a dozen times over. What matters is the tech, the infrastructure, and the long-term trajectory. I think this shows that not only are they using the technology, they're eating their own dog food, right? They're using the tech that is we're all being asked to use, whether it's at work, whether it's personally, just in the wild. And, I think that it just shows maybe it's not 100% production ready to just launch and not look at it, which is why, a lot of standards and companies have responsible AI practices. But I think the graphs themselves or the animations you saw, all of those things, I think are just a stumble, not a death knell. Let's look at the bigger picture. Zoom out. In less than 6 years, OpenAI went from an obscure research org that I would wager most of you didn't even know existed. Elon Musk was a part of it. You have all these big tech founders, all of the who's who in tech were kind of part of it at the beginning. Now it's one of the most recognizable names in AI. We went from GPT-2 to GPT-3. The jumps there were massive. It basically made a certain part of, and this might be a hot take, but of artificial intelligence research kind of boring. Your traditional AI models now, well, why would we go and build a solution from ground up if we could do pre-trained transformers and just take some of the pre-training that other big companies have already provided for us? GPT-4 became the benchmark everyone compared against. It wasn't, oh, here's the rough blah, blah, blah on this scale, the blah, blah, blah on that scale. Gemini announced showing how they stacked up against GPT-4. All these, Claude was another great one, These are all recognizable names now going at each other that are saying, hey, we are fighting for this pie, but GPT became the standard. It's one of those funny things that I think when people made the name, a traditional marketer might cringe. ChatGPT? That's a terrible name. Is there not something more catchy or, not super crazy that we could put out there that just rings off the tongue a little bit? Maybe has the 877 cash now ring or, something to that effect. How do we market ChatGPT? Well, you just keep making an amazing tool that keeps iterating, keeps growing, keeps getting users trust. And I think GPT-5 is a continuation, not the end. Their products scaled into ChatGPT Enterprise, API integrations, partnerships with Microsoft, and developer ecosystem that rivals app stores. You can build a custom GPT in minutes to completely just automate different tasks of your work, assist you in doing different roles, all these things that weren't possible just 3 years ago. They went from we made cool text generator to we power productivity for Fortune 500s in record time. People are comparing this to the Industrial Revolution with how fast and how crazy it could be upending the tech we know today. Now, you could go off on a limb and say, if you're an AI positive futurist or negative, but I think we can all agree that we haven't seen tech like this really shake up the way we work in a long time. You had the dot-com boom, you had the mobile app, everybody needs a mobile app craze, everybody needs a website. But I didn't have my grandma calling me up and saying, hey, look at this website I made. But I have grandparents saying, hey, look at this AI image I printed off of myself. Isn't it funny? I think that's just how ubiquitous this is starting to become. It's really permutating all of society. All different users across the board are using ChatGPT, whether it's the free tier, whether it's not. ChatGPT also announced that for entire wings of the government, they're charging them $1 a year to use ChatGPT for a year. I think you're going to just keep seeing these market leaders break into, different industries, and it's going to be harder and harder to even peel back if we even wanted to. let alone you're going to see these massive governmental production gains as well as everywhere else. And I'm an AI futurist. It's kind of why I make this podcast. I think we're going to see people be more productive, work on the things they really care about, and just be overall more fulfilled with their lives and their jobs. I think, if anything, a slower launch cycle shows that ChatGPT and OpenAI are starting to stabilize themselves as a long-term player, not racing into the hype cliff. It's no longer, what's the next thing our model can do? We made video, we made audio, we made real-time sentiment analysis. All the big players are doing that now. I think now it's, how do we build long-term for stability? Let's talk about the reality of innovation cycles. Every disruptive company hits these moments. Apple with the iPhone 4, Tesla's production hell, Microsoft Windows Vista flop. None of those killed the companies. They were speed bumps. AI in its early innings were maybe in 1995 internet times. Expect waves of hype and backlash, but long-term compounding growth wins. GPT-5 might not feel as mind-blowing day one because expectations are crazy high. But understand the hood, the improvements stack up. Reliability, reasoning, efficiency, multimodality, all fuel for the next decade. The other thing, we talked about personas that are being announced in GPT-5. There's all these different things that you could maybe tweak if you're manually coding or editing the model underneath the scenes, depending on how you were developing it, that now is making it more accessible for more end users. So not only can I now, people said they used Grok at one point just because it was witty and funny and haha. You can do that in ChatGPT now. You can give it a persona to be a little bit more witty, to be a little bit more jabby with your comments. We can do that. Then there's also, you could have done that with system prompts, but now it's built into the model itself. It's more accessible. You have the ChatGPT store. You can build different models to do different GPTs to do different tasks, and you can sell those. And you don't need a computer science degree to do it. Anybody and everyone can do it. And you're now seeing the top tier inferencing model being offered as a free tier into their platform. Before, it used to be, if you wanted the latest and greatest, you had to have GPT-5 or GPT Pro, which was like $300 a month or some crazy amount of money. Now you can just get a free account. You don't even need to give them your credentials. And you get so many GPT-5 requests for free. Then you go back to a cheaper model, but still, it's free. And I don't think they could offer that without seeing exponential decrease in costs. We're also seeing a lot of the polishing happening in GPT-5 that I think people are, those of us who have adopted AI and, are ready to ship it all over everything and, find the real ROIs there. I think we've accepted some of the shortcomings of other GPTs. GPT-5 is definitely a more stable and it's a more corporate or sanitized version of ChatGPT, which for some industries, that's what they've been wanting. We have people who are like, yeah, so we have some content safety. We have all these different pieces. Cool. Those are there. We can use them. We can hope that it catches any sort of malicious things. But I think at the end of the day, a more corporate, professional model is something that the industry as a whole is wanting. And if not, this is just where we are in the innovation cycle. People will vote with their feet, with their dollars. And we'll see how this goes into training GPT-6. Or if we go, the 5.1 route or whatever the next model name may or may not be. We'll see how this continues to evolve and change over time. Let's go to the broader ecosystem. OpenAI isn't playing in a vacuum either. Anthropic, Google DeepMind, Meta, xAI are all pushing hard to catch up to the lead that OpenAI had. I remember when OpenAI first announced ChatGPT, or it was starting to get mainstream success, everybody looked at Google DeepMind and said, you've been indexing the internet for years. How are you letting a small startup beat you? And I think Google didn't see that, didn't take that sitting down. And they're now one of the better models. Gemini is literally beating ChatGPT in different metrics on different versions. Granted, it depends on where you look and how the training goes, but they're a true power player on par, if not better, than ChatGPT. And, with the size of them, you could argue now that, ChatGPT has support from Microsoft, but still, that's Google against technically a small startup. Meta AI is also doing some crazy moves. We're seeing MLB level salaries for some of these engineers to come over and work for Meta. Meta is open sourcing them. I don't think we would have seen ChatGPT announce an open source model if Meta hasn't built in public and open source it prior. All of these companies are forcing each other to be better because if they don't, well, the other one would just win. We wouldn't even be talking about ChatGPT today if Llama just was so much better, had such a better user experience, and was easy to host ourselves. But I think the reason that we're talking about all these is, in Google or even in AWS, every cloud provider has their own integrators to make this a seamless and easy to integrate experience. ChatGPT with AI search for chat with your data. You can build a RAG solution with just a few clicks without really knowing much of anything. There's a UI even, so you can even just chat with your data in the portal. Gemini has something similar. I know for a fact AWS does. We're all pushing each other to be better and to decrease the barrier of entry and increase the accessibility for everyone to build AI solutions. And I think competition doesn't kill OpenAI. It forces them to stay sharp. Could you imagine if ChatGPT announced 3.5 and then, they were the only ones in the market? You know how crazy it would be if the best model we had to work with today was GPT 3.5? I'm sure if we could go back and use the 3.5 Turbo even, we'd be asking ourselves, why are we even messing with this technology? It's so bad. It doesn't ever give me the right answer. But instead, all these other firms are forcing each other to be better, to innovate, to keep growing and expanding on the capabilities of AI models. We now have Sora, which can go out and create videos. We have Dolly, which can create images. We have all these other tools because every other AI firm is pushing the envelope of what is possible. And I think while we keep seeing that happen, we will keep getting the benefits across the industry. It's not just, oh, hey, those people in Azure can use OpenAI. It's now anybody can. And I think you're seeing it pay off in, for example, smartphones using Gemini. If you have an Android device, Google is rolling that out into Gemini. If you're using Copilot, anybody who wants to use work productivity tools, you have AI getting better there as well. You have all these different tools, and I think it helps everybody be better and help us get out of the brainless minutia we do day in and day out and help us actually do the parts of our jobs that we really enjoy and like note takers, for example, right? Everybody, if you've ever been on a call lately, it feels like has their own custom note taker. There's a bajillion different solutions out there. They all do something slightly different, but they're all innovating and making it so I can be involved in this conversation and not have to be jotting notes down. That's a very simple case that I think is a win across the board. You can summarize it, you can send it out, and then everybody should have the same notes. Or we can all deliberate on, hey, it said this point, but I didn't think it was that. Now it's a talking point of, hey, we're all on the same page because we've all seen the transcript. I think that's a huge win. Microsoft integrations alone make ChatGPT also sticky to the enterprise. Once companies build workflows and GPT models, switching isn't super easy. I think you also have tools like Azure Proxy for AI models where you can go in and even put in like your Gemini credentials. You then have Azure services that can proxy to non-Azure hosted models if you want to go that route. So then you become even more of a sticky one-stop shop. Well, if we're a Microsoft shop, I can call any of these models. API proxying isn't new, it isn't crazy, but it's another way that we can be stickier. I think it also makes enterprises invest in their cloud even more. You have Copilot for 365, you have Copilot agents, you have Copilot Studio. A lot of these are powered by GPT or other models similar. It makes all of these interactions more sticky and hopefully helps our productivity. And OpenAI is building not just models, but the platforms. Things like Assistance API, fine-tuning tools, memory features. That's infrastructure, not just a fad. They're not just giving us AI and a UI to say, go talk to it, whatever. Here's your model, go do what you need to do. They're helping pioneer things like the Assistance API. They're signing on to co-create things like MCP. Created by other people, but they're adapting that open standard. The OpenAI standard is also a spec they put out there. All of these things were all working together to make this a better and better place. Why GPT-5 will kill OpenAI is the wrong take. The headline assumes one release defines a company's future. History says otherwise. GPT-5 might not satisfy Twitter's wow me now crowd, but in reality, it will cement OpenAI as an evolving platform. The company is too diversified, too embedded, and too fast-moving to die because of one launch. The real story isn't that GPT-5 will kill OpenAI. It's that GPT-5 shows OpenAI is entering a new era, less hype and more maturity. So no, GPT-5 isn't going to kill OpenAI. If anything, it proves they're alive, adapting, and still pushing the frontier. The graph's overblown. The panic's short-sighted. The real story is we're witnessing one of the most significant technology arcs of our lifetime. And this launch is just one chapter. If you found this breakdown useful, hit like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Do you think ChatGPT 5 is underwhelming? Or is it just the start of OpenAI 2.0? Thanks. See you next time.